Welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Truth Rising Show. This is the Spaceman 2.0, and I'm here to help you grow in the knowledge and the truth shall set you free. And in that being said, let us get back into part 17 from Here to Armageddon, a Phoenix Journal. This one's by Ashtar. And with that being said, you can get a copy of this. Just look down below, and any donation is much appreciated and will always be given gratitude in every way. I thank all of my subscribers, and I'm sorry for waiting in a week and a half to put out another part to this book. We got to start speeding this up along, because at this rate, it's going to take another few weeks to get through the rest of the chapters. Well, we're almost done with the book, but then there's appendages that have a lot of important information that you need to know. So let's carry on with Christ's teachings showed the way. So I'm going to take it from the top just to begin. Christ's teaching showed the way, and then continue on. Because of certain of his teachings, indeed, the simplest of the teachings, he represents a direct frontal attack upon the DB and all which they have attempted to accomplish in the millennia since the rebirth scheme was initiated, specifically by asserting that one should love one's enemies. Christ presented the single most effective way to overcome the temptations of earth life and to confound the whisperings of the DB. By looking on one's enemies, or better, on all of creation with pure love in one's heart, all of the negative emotions, all of the enmities and frustrations of life simply fade away. Without these annoying factors, the DBBs cannot succeed in their declared aim of dragging human souls down to destruction. The DB knows full well that the Christ teaching in this regard are the single most effective means for gaining higher ground spiritually, and therefore they seek in any way possible to undermine the reality of the figure of Christ and the validity of his message. Okay, let's read that again, because that's one of the most important things you can ever read. The dark brotherhood, okay, the demonic brotherhood that's controlling the governments today, all right, through possession and black satanic magic, ritualistic, adrenochrome, blood sacrificing ways. The dark demonic brotherhood knows full well that the Christ's teachings in this regard are the single most effective means for gaining higher ground spiritually, and therefore they seek in any way possible to undermine the reality of the figure of Christ and the validity of his message. Just like with back in the day, there was a YouTube video called Zeitgeist, which went around with the astrology of the zodiac and how that represented the 12 disciples and such, that this meant that Christ never existed. But that's all, if you do enough research and you deductive reason enough, the Talmud, which is one of the teachings of the Pharisees, they basically said that they made fun of Christ. They said he's the son of a whore, and he was born on menstruation, and this and that, and all sorts of nasty things, that Mary was a prostitute. This is in the Talmud. They are directly against that which is of Christian or Christ attitude. And they're even told directly at times not to even look at the New Testament. They're forbidden to actually read the New Testament, which means then they are exactly anti-Christ. So I don't know what that means, but with that being said, the DB knows full well that the Christ teachings in this regard are the single most effective means for gaining higher ground spiritually, and therefore they seek in any way possible to undermine the reality of the figure of Christ and the validity of his message. So they do this in the Talmud in many passages. Just look it up. It's disgusting what they say. And other rules that they have in the Talmud, and they're put above the Bible, and the sages are recognized as higher than God's word in that domain. Just letting you know. So, and the validity of his message. This they do in two ways. The first is to cast doubt upon whether or not he ever lived on the earth plane, the zeitgeist. There are certain so-called messages from other planes which contend that he was a reality on certain planes, but not on the physical. Now, any who can understand that all of creation is one can surely perceive that if Christ was a reality on one plane, he must have manifested on all planes. To do otherwise would detract from the completeness of the message which his life represented. Other transmissions contend that he was merely a man, and that there was nothing special about him aside from the wisdom which he had attained through revelation or study. Again, this is intended to undermine the importance of his life and to sow doubts as to whether he represented some special factor which had entered the earth realm to live and walk with mankind. Well, he was merely a man who was greater than all men, but he taught that any man could reach his stature and wisdom. So that is an amazing teaching right there. What I can do, so can you, and greater things than I, he said. So, with the sentence, well, he was merely a man who was greater than all men, but he taught that any man could reach his stature and wisdom. And in the Bible it says he came from the order of Melchizedek, so he came from one of the highest planes of the heavenly heights, the 13th dimension, something like that, mainly why he had 12 disciples and he was the 13th, which just goes along with, again, the fruit of life, the flower of life, the tree of life, and everything that has to do with the flower of life. It has every possible secret contained in it, and he was there revealing it in actual manifested form and living a life within the teachings of the laws of God. And I'll just leave it at that. Continuing on, in short, any contention that Christ was less than a manifested special being was whose life was dedicated to the spiritual upliftment of the human race, and who was overlighted during the ministry years by the pure glory of the Father Creator, must be carefully scrutinized to see whether or not there is a deliberate attempt to detract from the importance of the Christian message. And I speak of the Christian message in full truth of definition, not what it has become in your eons of misinterpretation. So remember that. Let's go back and read that again. It's one of the most important sentences in this book as well. In short, any contention that Christ was less than a manifested special being whose life was dedicated to the spiritual upliftment of the human race, and who was overlighted during the ministry years by the pure glory of the Father Creator, must be carefully scrutinized to see whether or not there is a deliberate attempt to detract from the importance of the Christian message. And then, of course, the Christian message is not as fully given out these days because of the dilution and the misinformation and all of that from the truth of the past. Other supposed teachings from other planes are also directed to undermining the certainty and understanding of the seeker. For example, some sources contend that the passage of time is an illusion, that all lives are lived simultaneously, and that there is no real distinction between past, present, and future. Now, in a certain sense, which can only be understood from a vantage point which is outside of the physical plane, this contention is true. However, the result of trying to fully grasp this philosophical notion from within physical incarnation can only be total confusion. What you perceive as time allotments, and that is exactly what you get. What you perceive is time allotments, and that is exactly what you get. The consciousness of man has been given to him in order to allow him to perceive time as a flow, so that he could understand the great law of cause and effect. Let's go back and read that again. The consciousness of man has been given to him in order to allow him to perceive time as a flow, so that he can understand the great law of cause and effect. So he can understand the great law of cause and effect. Man does A and the result is Z. This always takes place in that order and is intended to allow a perception of the truth that man, by virtue of the thoughts and emotion he harbors, makes his own reality. And we all know this. If you go out today smiling, you meet other people that are smiling. But if you go out today to be angry and get mad, you're going to find other people the same mentality. So it's interesting how that works. If this latter idea can be grasped, then even higher purpose can be served, namely to allow each incarnated soul to understand itself. To understand itself. The DBBs do not want man to understand all of the ramifications of what we will call karmic law. Hence, you got the word Lolo that Drake put out. And anyways, he never started from the bottom. He started from Forest Hill, which is $1 million house. Okay, so we'll call karmic law, and they attack the possibility of such a grasp by trying to confuse the seeker with regard to time. If one concludes that the flow of time is an illusion and that all lives are lived simultaneously, then how can existence from one life possibly affect another? But karma does pass from one life to from one life to life. Karma is another of your misused words which has lost most of its true definition, but I find no other suitable. At the level where there are manifest results of these experiences, it is quite correct and certainly adequate to consider that one life precedes another in an orderly fashion and sequence. The reconciliation of the earth-based point of view with the higher grasp of time as a single instant, which is pulled out into a stream by man's consciousness, must wait until the seeker has reached the spiritual plane from which these ideas can be seen in their full light. Let's go back up and read that one of the last sentences, or the second paragraph. If this latter idea can be grasped, then the even higher purpose can be served, namely to allow each incarnated soul to understand itself. So we are here and meant to understand ourselves. Now let's go take a look at some of the other teachings of Christ I have up on the wall. 1 second. So this is something I have had for many years now. And if you just read it, these are the teachings of Christ by a very beloved and goodly teacher, Sananda. Sananda's his new name as he comes back. He says he will have a new name. This Sananda means one with and within God and the creation. So it says, what is the purpose of life? The purpose of life is to grow in knowledge of the one Creator. What is the essence of life? The essence of life is to know the Creator as yourself. Hence, to understand yourself, back in the other sentence. What is life? Life is the supreme joy and delight of experiencing all that is. And when you understand all that there is, you will have achieved what already is. Now contemplate those last words. Ponder that. But what is the essence of life? The essence of life is to know the Creator as yourself. Christ said, I and my Father are one. And what I can do, so can you. So therefore you can be one with the Father as well through the Christed teachings. And let it be. So let's conclude with just the next paragraph. Then I'm going to end this episode. We're going to get on to another one very soon. I'm going to try to put out 2 a week at least. I'm going to look forward to, and then 3 hopefully, and let's get this ball rolling where we can get the teachings out. So misleading teachings. Now for one other example of misleading teachings, there are sources which contend that the galactic observers now in the region of the earth are not all friendly to mankind. There is the suggestion that some are distinctly alien and even hostile, and the certain of these beings kidnap humans and kill humans and animal life for experimental purposes. So with that being said, you know, God would not allow any negative beings to freely roam the universe and come and attack us. That's for sure. It's off limits for them. And just know that there's no asteroid about to invade us as well, or solar flares about to kill us. This is all man-made. And this is Spaceman 2.0 with the Phoenix Truth Rising show. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we're coming back with part 18 very soon. Spaceman 2.0 and